career pathway to become a professor. Today, we are here with Professor Weng Marc Lim. Thank you so much, Mark, for being here today.
Thank you very much, Park, for the invitation. Yeah,
Thank you
really
so
happy to be
much.
here
Yes.
and really great initiative in terms of what you're doing.
Thank you. Let's start with the first questions of what are some of the pathway for a person to be promoted to a professor?
All right, so in terms of getting to professorship, I think what's important is to know, how the journey will actually look like. So in a typical academic institution, you will have the academic ranks of a lecturer, senior lecturer, associate professor, and professor, right? So the pathway to professorship typically requires you to start at the lowest level first, which is lecturer, and then all the way up to professor. And how do you go about that? Well, it depends on institutions. And for most institutions, they have a couple of what we call as academic tracks. The first track is the teaching track, right? And the teaching track is not very common, although it's academic institution. Reason being is because academics today, especially in universities, that wants to compete in international rankings will need to do a lot of research. So the more common one is the teaching and research track, which is I think 80%, 90% of institutions will have that track, and will be employing people in that track. So the balance of another 10% usually comes from people on the teaching track or on the research track. The research track is also pretty uncommon because the research track typically requires one to get an external grant out there to fund partially, if not fully, their salaries. Right. Coming back to the first track, which is the teaching track. Teaching track is where, yes, it's about teaching, but it's not just about, coming to the university and just teaching. No, that kind of job is actually a sessional job rather than a full-time academic job. So what is really a teaching track kind of job is, yes, you teach, but you're also looking at, opportunities and challenges in teaching, and how can you create some kind of innovation that will address those kind of challenges and or leverage those kind of opportunities in teaching. And when you do that, essentially you're doing research but in the teaching space, the pedagogical space, and more often than not you're also expected to publish, but perhaps in a teaching journal. So that's one way you can actually get yourself into academia. And if you do well, where it's about not just about yourself doing well, you also get to share this with others, through publications, through conferences, and so on. You get recognized for it through awards, and you also mentor other people. That's what promotion looks like, and that has to happen again and again, because as you go out from lecturer to senior lecturer, senior lecturer to associate professor to professor, you are expected to show that over time. Again and again. And the difference really is doing that at a department level, institutional level, national level, and international level. That's how I will put it. The same case goes with the teaching and research track as well. So in addition to those in teaching, you can then have a little bit more balance. You can do some in teaching, you can also do some in research as well. And when it comes to research, yes, publication is what we see on LinkedIn, but it goes beyond that because there is also the grant factor. And in terms of grant factor, I think one thing important to recognize is that doesn't mean you get a grant, you get promoted, right? If it's an internal grant, it doesn't really make much sense to get promotion based on internal grants. Why? It's because the institution has given you the money, and doesn't mean that someone gives you the money internally in your family and then you say that, hey, now I should be promoted. So that doesn't really make much sense. So the idea of grants is the same like how you look at publications. It has to be something that's external. And of course, there's an element of supervision as well, because at the end of the day, we are all teachers. So it's important to demonstrate supervision, especially at the higher degrees by research level, at the master's level, and also the PhD level. But of course, sometimes that takes time. So it's also good to have supervision at the postgraduate coursework level, because some postgraduate coursework like MBA also have a thesis component. Yeah. Whereas on the research space, if you are fully on the research track, then the idea really is you got to demonstrate a very strong element of research impact, right? It goes beyond citations. It's about, how do you influence policy? How do you create a change in community, and not just doing research for the sake of doing. I'm not saying that, if you're on teaching track or on teaching and research track, you don't have to do that. But what happens is that because you are fully on a research track, then the expectations or the magnitude of returns from research is much higher than, of course, someone in the teaching and research track. Yeah. So
Yes.
hopefully that gives a little bit of perspective in terms of the different ways of getting to professorship.
Yes. I think, Mark, you have summarized from the teaching and research very well. And I think it's very lucky for us to hear from you because you have been as a dean for a number of universities. So across the role of the two universities that you have been as a dean, do you see the consistency of these two pathways that you have mentioned?
So, so I've been a dean at two universities. You're absolutely right, Park. I've also been on recruitment as well as promotion committees with other universities as well. And what I would say is that it is not very consistent. It all depends on your institution. Reason being why it's not very consistent is because some universities recognizes what a top academic looks like. All right. And when they go for promotion, they have the right mindset and values. Because interestingly enough, not everyone understand what promotion is. Right. In essence, promotions means this. You perform well in 1 year, that's your performance annual appraisal, that's your bonus, right? It is for you to perform over multiple years well to actually go for promotion. And the idea going for promotion is that when you look at all different three portfolios, you have to be doing that at a competitive level, at the market rate, at the industry level, at the international level. Now, why do I say it's not very consistent? It's because for many universities, like for example, in Australia, in business, we use the Australian Business Deans Council list, which I think is pretty good, is quite fair. But there are other universities that don't use such a list. They actually use Scopus or use Web of Science. And as we have seen, in recent times, some of the journals that are indexed in these databases are perhaps controversial. Right, some publishers are controversial. Yes, although one of the major journals that is super controversial, has actually been paused last year in terms of indexation, but has announced in January that the indexation will resume because they have passed through the rigorous scrutiny of the major database, and that's why it's okay. But again, it doesn't runs away from the fact that it's being debated in the scholarly community. And in many universities, because the criteria is looking at Scopus and Web of Science, then that kind of journals and from that kind of publishers continue to be accepted as part of promotion. So from that perspective, that's why I say that it's inconsistent. So my advice in this sense would be look at the institutional requirements. That's number one. Number two, even though institutional requirements, if the benchmark is not that high, the idea is this: you have to look at what's international at the end of the day. Why? Because if one day you choose to leave the institution, the only currency that will only be looked at is the international currency. So from that perspective, if you are using the international currency as your benchmark, then naturally you will actually succeed in your institution, regardless of the benchmark at your institution.
Yes.
That's how I would put it.
You have made a very good point about the international currency. We refer to ABDC listing or say FT50, those type of journal.
Yeah.
Now you have touched on the Predator journal. So let's say if some people publish in those have Predator journal, in some of the school, will that be like a minus point or see as okay?
Yeah. So my view is this: sometimes in life, people make mistakes, right? And the idea is, when did that mistake happen, right? And if you already know about it and you are still going to make the same mistake again, then of course I think that is a negative nugget in the bag.
Yes.
But if it's something where it's in the past, like for example, these predatory journals or these controversial journals you published sometime in 2018 or 2019, for example, before the pandemic, before people actually discussed about it, and nobody really thought that this could be a predatory journal, then I think that's fine. But when you go for, let's say, a promotion or you go for a job, I think what you really want to show is the strength of your work, right? You want to paint yourself in the best light. So of course, when you paint yourself in the best light, the idea is, please don't show these journals even though you have published over there. The idea really is to show what really makes you stand out. So like, for example, you may have 100 publications, but are you going to put 100 publications in your CV? The answer is no. What would you put in? You'll put in perhaps only 20 publications that are your A star or A. and the legitimate Q1s, which is, by reputable publishers like Emerald, Elsevier, Sage, Springer, Taylor Francis, Wiley, and so on. Yeah, so you want to show the best. You want to put yourself in the best light, and that means, in this sense, less is more. So
Yes.
focus on the really, really quality ones, I would say.
Thank you. I really like your point when you talk about know your school, know your target market of the school that you want to apply for or get a job promotion, whether do they count or not count. But at the
Yeah.
same time, you also mentioned that it is a safer option if you go for something that is acceptable for the international market, because you never know, one day you might move to another university or move to another country. So that is a very good point there. I actually love the point that you talk about every year you should consistently do better than the year before. So that is similar to let's say if you were to become like a salesperson, every year, every quarter we have a KPI, and the KPI keep increasing a little bit each year based on our performance. So you can based from what you mentioned and your experience, it is somewhat like sales people that we have to keep improving ourselves and learn so and so. But of course, this KPI doesn't have to be like 10 more paper per year. It can be just one more per year, or do other things like, industry project or grants and some other aspect there. Now let me touch on the next point. Like as a dean, have you seen like a new trend like in the past 10 years of how people becoming a professor?
Yeah. So I think the trend has changed in terms of how people actually become professor. One emerging trend that I'm seeing is that people are becoming professors much faster as before. Previously, to become a full professor, you need about 15 to 20 years. But now, I think if you really have the dream to become a professor, it will be within 10 years. That's how I'm looking at it. Of course, the idea is if you want to go quickly, can you actually go quickly? The answer is yes. So like for my case, I actually went pretty quick in my journey to professorship. I started off as a senior lecturer, and within 5 years, I actually got my professorship. Of course, there is also that time difference where although you're promoted, but it only gets effective in certain months, in the following year or whatnot, right? But overall, it's within 5 years. And sometimes people will ask, how come you are getting your professorship so fast? What's happening? Is it because you're in role holding position, that's why you are favored? And my answer is this. I was previously I was in Australian University's International Branch campus here in Malaysia. And I chose that for a reason. Of course, the reason because I had a good mentor. I initially rejected the offer, but when I received a call from the former dean, who unfortunately has passed away, she mentioned this. Mark, this is really the best offer that we could give you. Come here, we'll sit down and we'll check your career path for you. I said, okay, great. Immediately on the phone, I said I was going over. And when I was there, true enough, she opened up the path for me. But by opening up the path, for example, going to leadership position, that does not actually guarantee you a promotion. Why? Because holding a role on its own, without any contributions or without a story as many international institutions would expect. In Australia, in the UK, in the US, when you go for promotion, very interestingly, it's not like industry. Industry, you do a good job, your boss will promote you. Whereas in education, you actually need to apply for promotion. And when you apply, you have things that you actually got to write. Right? So from that perspective, I had to write my story in each of my portfolio. And when each time I went for promotion, the story is always this. What have you done since your last promotion? So because of that, it shows this. Yes, whatever you have done in your career is important, but what you will need to show when you want to go for the next promotion is, since your last promotion, what have you done since your last promotion across the portfolios of teaching, research, and service? And each of them has to be in depth. And when you have that, you are able to provide a convincing case. And the case that you need to provide, especially when you are going fast, you're going on a sprint, it has to be its equivalent as someone who has went on a marathon. Meaning that if someone took 5 to 8 years to produce that kind of merits, and if you are able to do it in 1.5 years, all right, And the benefit of being an international university is this, right? You have anti-discrimination policies, no discrimination against gender, no discrimination against race. Of course, there will be no discrimination against age as well. So I had that benefit over there, right? And when I spoke to the head of campus at that time, in terms of how did my promotion went, he told me this. Well, Mark, yours was very, very straightforward. Why? Because when we look at promotion, we look at the merits of whoever they were promoting. If someone has taken 5 to 8 years to produce that merits, and you've taken 1.5 years, and we are going to promote that person that's taken 5 to 8 years, definitely we have to promote you, even though you have done it in 1.5 years. Because if not, that's discrimination. So I say on that point, it means that it is true that merits really count. So when someone says that merit doesn't count, I don't quite believe it, because in a number of promotion panels that I've been in, whether it's in the institution that I was dean or in other institutions that I was invited on, we get to see the debates that actually happen. And the ones that get promoted very easily are the ones that are super clear-cut. When you look at the teaching portfolio, you see there's awards there, you see that they have mentored, they have an impact. In the research part, you see that, okay, the top-tier publications are there, there is no funny publications, external grants are there, and there's a range from local, international, public, private, and whatnot. And then when you look at the service part, there is always something excellent around there, whether it's in leadership position, if it's a dean or a head of school, there is that accreditation that comes in, there's international partnerships and whatnot. Yeah, so from that perspective, those that, that really says that they have merit is usually a very clear-cut case.
Yes. Thank you so much for summarizing that part. I think it's really good. And also congratulations on being the youngest professor in Malaysia. I also, I'm sure that you are aware that I actually graduated from the same school as yourself,
Yes.
the other version. So I think that's we have a connection there as well. And I really like when you talk about no discrimination in age, gender, and those type of things. Yes. So that's really good. Now you are someone who people really respect as a professor, even without a title of a professor of marketing, or without a dean title, they respect you as a professor. I will not say that there are professors who are not respect them as a professor, but I will talk about your case, that what do you do, or how do you make people respect you from their heart?
So I think respect has to be earned. I think respect doesn't come with a title. And this is one thing that I tell my staff, which is this. If you have a PhD, doesn't mean that I'll respect you. All right. I will also respect someone that doesn't have a PhD. The idea is that having a PhD doesn't mean that you should be respected, or you have to leverage and show off your doctor title or whatnot. The idea really is this. All right. If let's say you have a title, then that's a privilege, that's a responsibility, right? Means that you have something that others don't have, and you have to do more than what's expected of you to justify the privilege that you actually have. So the idea really is this. I think in order to gain respect and to earn respect, it's how you behave as an individual, as a person. Example is this. When I was back at my previous institution, when I became head of school, I was, if I'm not wrong, I'm not wrong, because it happened after that. When I became head of school, I was actually the youngest in the entire faculty. So when you are the youngest in the faculty and you are in the leadership position, you need to have that respect in order for you to be able to carry out your job. So how do you go about getting the kind of respect? I'll just share one tip here, and how they actually do it. When you're an institution that was teaching intensive and wants to transition to a research intensive institution, of course, people have hesitancy to do research, right? So, here this young chap saying, and then coming in a leadership position and saying that, hey, let's do research together and whatnot. And the idea was this. I said that, well, you can start doing research. If there's anything that you would like me to contribute, or you would like me to have a look at your work, please do so. So some of them started sending things to me, and I started giving, 500 words to 800 words kind of comments back to them. And then at the end, I said this, well, take these comments, go and work on it, improve on it. and go ahead and submit. And when some of them came back and said that, can you give me your details? I want to put your name there. And I said, no, I don't have to be there. And then they were all caught by surprise. Right? You have given us this much feedback and you don't want to be part of the co-authorship team? I said, no, I don't want to be part of the co-authorship team. And I said, very simple. The reason was this. If I can do a review of 500 to 800 words for a total stranger in the peer review process, why can't I do it for my own colleagues? So I did that on a consistent basis, and I think because of that, that actually helped me to like what the words that you use, which is to gain that kind of respect. And
Yes.
I think more importantly for me was to gain a kind of support, because I needed the support. Because as a leader, you need to have support. If you don't have support, there is no way you can actually thrive and help the organization to thrive. So for me at that time, I thought that I felt that it was the right thing to do, because if I can do this for an unknown person, definitely I can do for someone that I know and I don't have to put my name over there. So I
Wow.
think that was one way how I actually, in your words, gained the kind of respect from some of my colleagues.
I again love your example that you say the strategy that is come from your heart of helping people and to also at the same time earn the respect of the people. Actually, I have a similar story of because myself, I'm a course developer in my university at this and the previous one. I develop a lot of new courses, and I do a lot of interview with CEO and all that to be part of my teaching. Which one day I was thinking, which is just like a month ago, I was thinking like, oh, I have been doing a lot of video clips with CEO and all that. Why don't I do a series for the academic industry or like a
Yes.
community? And I was like, and that is a starting point of this series actually. And what you have mentioned is actually pretty much summarize what are some of my thinking as well. So that is really good strategy from your heart that is helping people and all that. Now, respect is need to be earned, not by the title, exactly like what you mentioned. So I really appreciate that part there. Now, last thing I want to ask you this. You may have touched it lightly, but let's say if you were to reflect back on, say, 2 or 3 key successful factor that you have done since the beginning of your career, what would that be so that the audience can learn from your success?
All right. So I think in reflecting back on my career, I would say there are two, um, I think, important lessons that I would like to share with whoever that's listening. And I don't like to use the story of failures, because I don't think people have failed. People will only fail if they actually stop doing it. Then I think that's failed. I mean, you take the inspiration from Thomas Edison. The one that actually talks about the light bulb. I did not actually fail. I just found 999 ways that the light bulb did not work. Right. So meaning that failure only happens when you actually put an end to it. Then that's failure. But if not, I would say there is two things. Number one is um, just say yes, don't say no. All right. Why? A lot of times, people will say that things that come your way, because what's important is that you are taking care of yourself well, mentally and whatnot. Well, I like to suggest a different perspective on that. Right. I think that the mental well-being of an individual needs to be looked at a totality, not just a short term, but also the long run, right? Because imagine if you have opportunities that come your way, and just because you have a lot of workload at your plate currently, and then you reject the opportunity, but by rejecting the opportunity, you know that you still have other targets, goals, or ambitions to meet, and that kind of ambitions are actually very difficult to actually satisfy. And by actually accepting the opportunity, even during your most busy period, it would have actually alleviate that problem in the longer run. So from that perspective, accepting it despite it being so busy could have actually been the better option as compared to rejecting it and then trying to find the opportunity later on and the opportunity does not come. Right.
Yes.
So I'm actually quite going back through my own experience. I think that one of the best decisions I always make is always saying yes first and then think later.
Yes.
Because when I say yes to something, I will need to find a way to deliver it. And I think another point that I will make is this goes to my second point, which is in life, especially in academic, regardless of how high you go, you must always work like a PhD student.
Mm.
So currently, even though I'm a dean, and whether I'm a professor, and sometimes when people invite me on board for to do projects on papers and whatnot, I actually take the effort to do line editing, not just copy editing or proofreading, but typically a real line editing where I actually not just correct for grammar, but also enhance it from a disciplinary perspective. So I still work like a PhD student, and I think for my collaborators, a lot of them can actually testify that, because whenever I send it back that my edit is always the track changes and everywhere is red color. Yeah, but the whole idea is, number one is really to say yes to opportunities, not to say no to opportunities as they come. I think that was one of the best things I did in life. And sometimes it's really super busy period, but I just say yes first. And then after that, I find ways to deliver it. And the way I actually deliver it is really working like a PhD student. Because when you're a PhD student, your whole idea is this: you want to satisfy your supervisor. You always want to get the yes from the supervisor. So if you say yes to opportunities, even during your busiest period, and you work like a PhD student to deliver that, with the hope of getting the green light from whoever that you're working with, I think that will actually put you in good stead. And I think that formula has worked well for me. And it's got me to wherever I am today. Yeah.
Amazing. I really love the mindset of work like a PhD student and say yes to the opportunity when it is ever possible. So that is very good. Now, this is career pathway to become a professor with Professor Weng Marc Lim. Thank you so much, Mark, for being here today.
Thank you very much, Park, and I hope that these insights are useful to whoever's listening. And of course, if anyone wants further insights or to bounce any ideas, LinkedIn is there, so just drop me a message.
Thank you.